ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਕਹਾਂ ਬੁੱਧ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਤੁਛ ਹਮਾਰੀ ਬਰਨ ਸਕੈ ਮਹਿਮਾ ਜੋ ਤਿਹਾਰੀ ਹਮ ਨਾ ਸਖਤ ਕਰ ਸਿਵਤ ਤੁਮਾਰੀ ਆਪ ਲਿਹੋ ਤੁਮ ਕਥਾ ਸੁਧਾਰੀ ਹਮ ਨਾ ਸਖਤ ਕਰ ਸਿਵਤ ਤੁਮਾਰੀ ਆਪ ਲਿਹੋ ਤੁਮ ਕਥਾ ਸੁਧਾਰੀ।
ਸਤਨਾਮ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ। ਉਦਾਸੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਸਿੱਧ ਗੋਸ਼ਟ ਚੌਪਈ। ਬਾਬੇ ਕੋ ਉਦਾਸੀ ਆਈ, ਬਾਬੈ ਸੁਰਤ ਪ੍ਰਦੇਸੈ ਲਾਈ। ਲੈ ਮਰਦਾਨੋ ਸਾਥ ਰਲਾਏ, ਲਇਓ ਰਬਾਬ ਉਨ ਮੋਢੈ ਚਾਏ। ਬਾਬੇ ਕੋ ਉਦਾਸੀ ਆਈ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਤੇ ਮਿਹਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ। We are blessed by Satguru Sahib Ji to be in their presence and doing vichar katha on the history of the Panth and Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So the history in Panth Parkash written by Bhai Rattan Singh Ji, having covered the early part of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji's life from their avatar, from their birth, their coming into this earth, Bhai Rattan Singh Ji now goes on to tell us about the period of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's time, when Guru Nanak Dev Ji decided that the time was right to travel the world and spread the teachings that Guru Nanak Dev Ji had been instructed to deliver in this world from Akal Purkh. So we call this part of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's life the Udasis, when Guru Nanak Dev Ji went on to travel. And as Bhai Rattan Singh Ji tells us, the desire within Guru Nanak Dev Ji to undertake this mission came from a place of detachment. It came from a place where they were no longer interested in the ways of the world. They were no longer interested in being amongst the worldly beings who were entangled in Maya within the illusion. And they also had no concern or regard for the following that they immersed around them, particularly after the events in Kali Bain, where Guru Nanak Dev Ji, having disappeared for 3 days and becoming one with Akal Purkh during that time, then comes back onto this earth and is recognized all round by people as a spiritual holy being. So within Guru Nanak Dev Ji, when the desire to leave all of this and travel the world and see the world and the ways of the world came about within them, Guru Nanak Dev Ji undertook the Udasis.
That
within Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says, the desire to travel and leave this world behind emerged. And in Guru Nanak Dev Ji's mind, Guru Nanak Dev Ji thought of going to lands far away from where they were. And taking Bhai Mardana Ji with them, Guru Nanak Dev Ji departed in this way. And Bhai Mardana Ji took the rabab with them, the rabab being a stringed instrument used in early Sikh music. So isi tarah Guru Nanak Dev Ji travelling around then with their companion Bhai Mardana Ji, and as we know with some of Maharaj's travels as well, Bhai Bala Ji accompanied them. And isi tarah Guru Sahib Ji travels around the world at this point, spreading the Upadesh of Kirtan, spreading the Upadesh of Ik Onkar with their companion Bhai Mardana Ji. Whatever Guru Nanak Dev Ji in their state of happiness and in their state of bliss, because at this point, leaving behind the world, Guru Nanak Dev Ji is fully content and fully satisfied. And wherever in their mind they desired such a place that they should go to, Guru Nanak Dev Ji travelled to that place. And as and when Guru Nanak Dev Ji's mind entered a state of bliss, when they would connect with Gurbani, where in Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj gives us the upadesh that Turki Bani Ai Tin Sagli Chint Matai. When the Bani has come from Sachkhand, from the heavens, and has come into my mind, then at that point all my worries and anxieties have departed from me. So in this way Guru Sahib Ji gives us a simple teaching in our life, how through the Shabad we can bring happiness into our life. And as Guru Nanak Dev Ji immersed themselves with Ik Oankar and the Bani came to them, Bhai Mardana Ji would play the Rabab and Guru Nanak Dev Ji would sing that Gurbani that is now within Guru Granth Sahib Ji.
Sidh Sadh O Peer Murid.
Whichever holy man, whether he was from the Hindu tradition or whether he was from the Islamic tradition or whether they were from one of the many native traditions of India at that time, whoever Guru Nanak Dev Ji would meet with, Guru Nanak Dev Ji would have discourse with them on God, on divinity and on the way of living in this earth.
Dekhpal hoye age turid.
Each of these people, when we learn from the Janam Sakhis that Guru Nanak Dev Ji essentially was able to give them the message of truth. Now, it is not to come at religion from an egocentric position that our religion alone was true. It is to understand that at that time there were hundreds or even thousands of people preaching different religions, and it is Sikhi that went on to now become one of the world's greatest religions and biggest religions, and that is because the Guru Nanak Dev Ji's message did gain more traction over many of the other spiritual traditions at that time. And as we will learn throughout the Katha, that many of the highest people within their own spiritual disciplines actually became disciples of Guru Nanak Dev Ji as well.
Jah Jah Baba De Sahjaye.
And whichever territory, whichever terrain, whichever belt of the land Guru Nanak Dev Ji travelled to give their teachings, they gave the message of truth to one and all, and that message of truth was for them to immerse in the name of God. For a Sikh, it does not matter whether someone says Ram, whether someone says Allah, whether someone praises Jesus' name. Our teaching that our Guru has given us and had us spread for others is that by taking the name of the Lord, however, in whichever way you perceive the Lord, that is the medicine in this day and age for many of the pains in our mind that we all encounter. So is this universal message that Guru Nanak Dev Ji delivered to all without bias or discrimination, however, whichever way they encountered them.
Peer Pakambar Devi Dev.
And Peer Pakambar, so some of these are guides and holy beings within the Islamic tradition and then the native traditions of India, where the god and goddesses still carry a great prominence. Bhai Rattan Singh Ji tells us of these two traditions, of the Islamic traditions and the Hindu traditions now. That people had started to move away from these practices and these traditions, and of course this is obvious if we think of the spread from Sikhi at that time. It came from people moving away from other religious practices, and Bhai Rattan Singh Ji tells us now people stopped worshipping the Devi Devte, people stopped going to the shrines of Islamic preachers and teachers as well, because it is not a case of, again, it's something that in religion we should come at from an egocentric position, and indeed everyone and everything on this earth is a manifestation of that infinite divine being. So yes, God is in everyone and God can be seen within everyone as well. But for the purposes of one's own spiritual benefit and religious journey, to have a singular focus on that, which we have in Gurbani, Gurbani being the teachings of the Gurus, being in Guru Granth Sahib today, which are infallible because there is perfection there that we do not find in humans. So in this way, Guru Nanak Dev Ji connecting everyone not to them, but to the message of that one being, and that one being in each religion, essentially had people then moving away from the practices of worshipping the gods and the goddesses, or even worshipping the kind of saints. Because if we look even in the monotheistic traditions where they believe that there is only one God, the Lord, even in those traditions, saints are worshipped like we have in Western countries, where we have many celebrations through the year in the name of the saints. So in monotheistic tradition, you still find an idolation of person, in the way that in the monotheistic traditions where they believe God has many forms, they worship that in the Devi Devte. But in Sikhi, this holds less prominence, and Bhai Rattan Singh Ji tells us this change happened at the time of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's travels.
ਵੀਰ ਸਿਧ ਔ ਮੰਤਰ ਤੰਤਰ
And all of the different spiritual practices of that time, anyone who is versed in the culture of India will know that there are many aspects of existence there that do not quite cross or match to the aspects of our existence. And actually, many psychologists understood this too. So, for example, the dark arts in India, the different spiritual and religious traditions that people have of enduring austerities, of sitting on spikes, of meditating for years in one posture, and obtaining siddhis, magical powers, immersing oneself within mantra, where one does the practice of chanting, merging that with the breath and instilling a certain presence in the mind, or even tantra, where one undertakes practices to dissolve the duality of this world, and then uses that usually to control other people. So each of these things, Guru Nanak Dev Ji encountered these people, Guru Nanak Dev Ji met with these people and had a diverse dialogue with all the different spiritual traditions of the time, which reflects all of the Gurbani in Guru Granth Sahib Ji.
ਸੁਨੈ ਨਾ ਕਹਿ ਜਾਲ ਜੋ ਜੰਤਰ
But none of these people, regardless of whichever discipline they came from, regardless of whichever practices they had done, regardless of whichever person they were the follower or devotee of, that each of these people were left coming out second, having had a conversation or meeting and encounter with Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji.
ਗਗੋ ਲਾਂਜੋ ਪੂਤ ਜੋ ਪ੍ਰੇਤ
And Gagu, who was someone that in Punjabi folklore was followed at one time, and we find this in the history of Punjab, that because in Punjab there's always been a crossover. If when we go 1,000 years back, we can think of Buddhism. If we go then centuries before that, we find it being a center that has been linked to many of the mythological stories that go back to the core of Indic civilization. However, where there is such diversity of coming in of Muslim saints, coming in of Hindu saints, coming in of then the many Sikh saints, within each of that, as Sikhs, we have a very unique identity, and we look at this from a cultural perspective. We will always find Punjab has many secular practices and reflections within that, but these are all ways that as Sikhs, the Guru gave us a singular worship where they said to us, you can worship God directly and use Gurbani as a means of accessing that in the way that the Guru has. So in this way, it kind of pushes Sikhs to live as enlightened beings rather than just worshipping other people because they maybe obtain certain powers or abilities during their lifetime.
ਦੂਰ ਕਰਾਏ ਇਨਕੇ ਹੇਤ
That each of these people, Guru Nanak Dev Ji actually reduced their followings, and in this way it was clear why, in not just the early days of Sikhi but throughout Sikhi's history, it's always been something that's attracted enmity. Because our position with each religion is we encourage others to practice the religion to the best of their ability, and then we feed people and give them help if they need help and protect them and try to protect ourselves at all times. So it is a very enlightened and powerful way of living that Sikhs have been given, which is what sort of facilitates its spread as well and the continuation of that tradition. But such thing always attracts enmity as well.
ਦੋਹਰਾ ਤੁਰਕਨ ਕੈ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਨ ਕੈ ਜਹ ਜਹ ਦੇ ਸਹਿ ਜਾਏ
Whether Guru Nanak Dev Ji encountered the Muslim, whether Guru Nanak Dev Ji encountered the Hindu, and whoever Guru Nanak Dev Ji encountered from whichever territories,
ਹਕ ਪਰਾਇਓ ਉਨ ਕਹਿ ਉਸੈ ਸੂਰ ਉਸ ਗਾਏ
Guru Nanak Dev Ji said to them that your haq, that which is righteous, that which is truthful, you binding yourself to that, to withholding yourself from committing oppression against another, and being a truthful person in your living and your conduct, that for the Hindu this is your holy cow, and for the Muslim, if you do the opposite of these, this is then for you the equivalent of eating pig. The most filthy thing you can do is to be a religious person on the outward, but actually on the inside being an unrighteous person, a person who lies. And we read this in Nitrim, in Ananda Sahib, where Guru Sahib Ji gives us the teaching of Jio Melay, Baro Nirmala, that if you are living on the Jio, your life on the outside is impure, and you're on the inside impure, you're false, you lie, you cheat, you betray, you don't hold to your word, but on the outward you project yourself as a religious person, then you lose this gamble, you lose this game of life. And in the essence, one has to purify themselves on the inside and on the outside at the same time. And it is why the identity in Sikhi is such an important aspect of it, because it is there to actually uphold a certain standard of living.
Deva doyan saach lagaye.
That each of these people, whether they were Hindu or whether these people were Muslim, Guru Nanak Dev Ji joined them to the truth which is eternal, the truth which is everlasting, the truth which is Ad Sach, Jugad Sach, Happy Sach, Nanak Hosi Pi Sach, where human beings have for such a long time concerned themselves with fighting over who the exclusive bearer of that truth is. That truth was here before we ever came here, and that truth will last when we are long gone from here. It is the truth that is one to everyone.
Turk Quran or Hinduan Ved.
That Guru Nanak Dev Ji, when they would encounter a Muslim, Guru Nanak Dev Ji would speak to the Muslim and tell the Muslim of verses from the Quran. If Guru Nanak Dev Ji encountered the Hindus, Guru Nanak Dev Ji would speak to the Hindus and tell the Hindus of verses from the Vedas. Because in Gurbani, Guru Sahib Ji teaches us, they give us the mat, they give us the teaching. And for us as the Sikh, our duty is to take that mat and apply it, where Guru Nanak Dev Ji says that the Ved and Gatevi Unnanu na jhutha kaho. Do not call the religious scriptures false. Do not be so firm-headed as to attack someone else's scriptures. That actually, if you look in the essence of all religious scriptures, the purpose there is to connect people to God. So actually, yes, we should connect people with scriptures, we should connect people with the religious institutions, and we should encourage people in whichever way they do endeavor to realize and connect with the divine, encourage them to do so within the confinements of whatever they understand, because that is our duty as Sikhs.
Vach kahe on sach bhed.
That Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says that the truth that was within those scriptures, Guru Nanak Dev Ji proclaimed the truths within the Quran to the Muslims, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji proclaimed the truth within the Hindu text to the Hindus, and then challenged them to uphold living to those standards that were set for them.
Ek baar Baba ji achale gayo.
On one occasion, Bhai Rattan Singh Ji tells us of when Guru Nanak Dev Ji went to Achal to do a discourse with the Sidhs there.
Wahan mela tha Sidhan kayo.
So the Sidhs were a group of spiritual people who emerged from the Nath school of Hinduism. The Nath school of Hinduism being a yogic sect who were the followers of Goraknath, who came about sometime after the 10th century or the 11th century. There are some debate to when he emerged, but from him there are certainly monasteries going back to the 1100s. All around India, all around parts of Asia, where people became the followers of Gorak, where it became the prominent discipline, one of the prominent discipline of the yogis became the Goraknathis. So on one occasion was their gathering at a Mela, at a large festival. So a Mela is a festival that takes place, and it's typically always been a spiritual gathering in Punjab. When people speak of Melay, when people speak of fairs or festivals, they typically take around key historic dates or in the celebration of saints. So on one such occasion, there was a Mela of the Sidhs that Guru Nanak Dev Ji went to.
Kar Gost te pi jit laye.
And Guru Nanak Dev Ji defeated the Sidhs essentially at their own Mela. So one of the practices we find in the Hindu tradition is that when there is a Mela, that Charcha takes place. And often at these events, the Nirmala Sikhs will go here, they will participate in that Charcha because they too are learned on Hindu texts. But essentially, Guru Nanak Dev Ji being seen as an outsider from the Siddhs tradition, the Siddhs being those who had practiced a form of yoga or some other discipline and had obtained certain spiritual powers and state of being, those people who were seen as the highest in society worshipped them and was scared of their curses and would essentially give them money each time they begged to them because they were seen as being the enlightened beings of their age. Guru Nanak Dev Ji essentially went over and propagated truth at their own festivals.
Laye Siddhi तेऊ थक गए.
And they used the spiritual powers on Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So I think here there is one of the things that we need to understand as Sikhs is that Guru Nanak Dev Ji actually went and challenged aspects of yogic culture. That Guru Nanak Dev Ji challenged their aspects essentially which saw abandonment from the world, that saw ways of begging from other people as being a suitable way of existing, and encouraging people to live within the world rather than simply going away and going out of it. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji essentially here is starting to break down the domination that the yogi influence had over Punjab at that time.
सिद्ध कुरलाने बाल गुंदाई.
The Bal Gandai, who was one of the senior Siddhs and one of the senior yogis, who headed up one of the sects within the Nath discipline. He was a follower of Goraknath, and him being seen as one of the spiritually most powerful Siddhs at that time, the other yogis then went to tell him of what had happened when they encountered Guru Nanak Dev Ji.
हार सिद्ध न जाए चुगली खाई.
The Bhai Rattan Singh says, "Unna ne ja ke chugli kiti." This means to gossip or speak bad of someone. They went to their master and told them that, of what Guru Nanak Dev Ji had done to them.
नानक सिद्ध नवा इक भया.
There is this new Sidh called Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So what we find with Guru Nanak Dev Ji, depending on which part of India we go to, depending on which discipline or sect within a religion we go to, Guru Nanak Dev Ji is seen as different ways. So within some Islamic traditions, Guru Nanak Dev Ji is seen as a peer. Within some Hindu traditions, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, as we see here now, is by the Siddhs being described as he is one of us. He is a spiritually accomplished being, but yet he has done over on us. He is not from within us. And even in parts of North India and going there, maybe even further east, we find in some regions where Guru Nanak Dev Ji is referred to as a Lama by those who practiced aspects of the Buddhist tradition. So in this way, everyone recognized Guru Nanak Dev Ji as their own, in the way that Guru Nanak Dev Ji was with people, the way that Guru Nanak Dev Ji was able to speak to people in their own terms, their own religion, their own language. And anyway, in this way that the Siddhs then had become to recognize Guru Nanak Dev Ji as a challenge to their dominance of the people from a religious and spiritual perspective.
सब की लाहे सो ले गया.
That Guru Nanak Dev Ji defeated all of the Siddhs. So it's important that in our mind we don't look in a way, we don't look at anyone, let alone spiritually accomplished beings, in any type of derogatory way. But if we look and analyze the times, we see how some of the spiritual sects had aligned with the Mughals. And Asadiwa Guru Nanak Dev Ji really calls out this hypocrisy when he says to the Hindu priesthood that you're conducting your ceremonies and operating these manners of cleanliness during your prayers, yet in your life you are living subservient to the Muslims and abiding by their rules because you have lost your sense of honor. So it was these things that Guru Nanak Dev Ji then saw of, that actually some of these structures need to come down. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji spoke of a new way. Guru Nanak Dev Ji spoke of the Panth at this time, of the Udasis. And if we look in Guru Granth Sahib Ji, for example, the two Shabads that make reference to Parthar Yogi, where Guru Nanak Dev Ji gives Parthar Yogi the Upadesh of the Panth, tells Parthar Yogi about Rehras, tells Parthar Yogi about Kirtan, tells him about how living within this world you can immerse yourself within God, because Parthar Yogi was a great Raja, he was a great king, who coming on the path of Goraknath gave up everything, gave up his palace, gave up his kingdom, and pierced his ear and set about begging from other people. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji said to him that you don't need to leave everything, you can live within everything and be detached from it and connect with the truth. So this is the really powerful message that Guru Nanak Dev Ji's revolution brings about and sets about now. And in these Shabads, Guru Nanak Dev Ji uses the word Panth. So even today, I think sometimes we are guilty of, myself even sometimes, having used the word Qaum. Actually, if we look at Gurbani and our religion, our original sources of how we are referred to, Guru Nanak Dev Ji is speaking about this group of people, the Panth. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is speaking about the traditions of the Panth. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is calling this out in public and bringing people onto this path then through their Udasis.
सुन उन सिद्धन कियो हंकार.
But when the master of the Siddhs learned about this, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says in his mind, Hankara arose. So Hankara being ego, pride. One of the things that Gurbani tells us over and over again is our greatest enemy. And even then in this spiritual master, his ankar arose, which who could be there greater than me? And Guru Gobind Singh Ji in Bachitra Nanak tells us of how the god and goddesses all fell, and much of it comes down to ankar, where they believe themselves to be all powerful. And it was this that Guru Nanak Dev Ji came to break in people. These people, whether they were from the Islamic tradition or the Hindu tradition, some of these people were fully accomplished beings, other than they were unable to get rid of the cloak of ego, the thing that kept them in duality. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji came to break this, to shatter this illusion for them.
Iha aave to jauga har.
The Sidh thought in his mind, yes, but if Guru Nanak Dev Ji were to come here, where I am powerful, then surely he would lose.
Yeh sun Baba ji wahan sidhare.
And Guru Nanak Dev Ji thought, I have come into this world to help people like these. That if someone is sitting there and that person has become so egotistical and they're going to allow that to be their barrier to realizing the truth on this earth, then I will go to that person who thinks that he will defeat me.
Usko jeet gur aage padhare.
And Guru Nanak Dev Ji went there, and Guru Nanak Dev Ji not only essentially, we use this word defeated, but we must think of this in terms of spiritual discourse and in a respectful way. But if we look at the history and what emerged from there and the union of religious traditions that kind of happened, we see people then leave some of these orders and go on to become Gursikhs. So in the early days of Gursikhi, you already had people who were really well versed in religious practice, yogic practices, and the others, and taking to living the message and the teachings now of Guru Nanak Dev Ji.
Dohra Preed Patan Multan Mad Uchan Laujo Peer.
And here now Guru Nanak Dev Ji visits some of the descendants of Bhagat Farid Ji at Pakpatan, and here Bhai Rattan Singh Ji tells us that even in the way that they had done so with the Hindu tradition of speaking with the most revered saints within that tradition, Guru Nanak Dev Ji now does the same with the Musliman. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji is doing this around Punjab. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Udasis did go very far and wide. But in this first part that Guru Bhai Rattan Singh Ji tells us about, all of this is happening in the Punjab region, where Guru Nanak Dev Ji is really starting to shift the landscape there.
Sabhan so kar gosata neh kiski chhati tatbir.
And Guru Nanak Dev Ji did not leave anyone where or any place where he did not go. So if we think in India, like some of the traditions that we have where there are Jod Melay, and at set Jod Melay, the Khalsa goes there, the Sampradavas go there, and people set up their langar, like we see happen every year at Hajur Sahib, at Sultanpur, at Fatehgarh Sahib, wherever there is, these Melay happen. And in this way, wherever these Melay would happen, even today, hundreds of thousands of people come together. But this tradition is the way in which Guru Nanak Dev Ji spread Sikhi. They went to these major festivals, were able to give discourse to the people who were essentially at the top in the religious spiritual hierarchy, whether they were priests, whether they were saints, whether they were officials. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji gave them the message of the truth, and slowly then the masses start to follow too.
Chaupai aise aur kahan lag ganiya.
Like this, Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says, so many people, I am narrating to you just some of the events that happened during this time, but there were many examples of where Guru Nanak Dev Ji had gone and done similar things.
Paunche tahan Sidh jah suniya.
And he reached there at that point, wherever he would hear of the Sidhs.
Unki siddhi dekh dikhaye.
And in each occasion, and we find this if we follow Sidh Gost, the Gurbani in Guru Granth Sahib Ji, which is a collection of the conversations that Guru Nanak Dev Ji had with the Sidhs. And even if we go to Japji Sahib, so in the Sampradaya Arth of Japji Sahib, the Sampradaya being the old Sikh orders that have lineage back to Guru Gobind Singh Ji. In the Sampradaya tradition, it is said that there are two kathas of Guru Granth Sahib Ji. One katha of Guru Granth Sahib Ji is the simple, the understanding of Guru Granth Sahib Ji and the meanings of Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and the other is understanding Guru Granth Sahib Ji explained in the context of a conversation with the Sidhs. So when we read a Gotaka Sahib, and if normally we may find that line for line translation of Japji Sahib and think that is maybe what Japji Sahib means, or we might think that we learn what each of the words mean and then that is what Japji Sahib means. But actually, When people speak of not understanding Japji Sahib, you're never going to understand Japji Sahib. Japji Sahib is infinite. However, it's then about if you're going to do this as part of your daily life and your routine, and this being the path to your liberation, when you hear the Katha of Japji Sahib done in a Sampradaya way, where it is done as a conversation between Guru Nanak Dev Ji and the Sidh, it is done as a conversation between the most spiritually accomplished beings at that time and Nirankar Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and understand Ekko Onkar, understand the Mahatma, understand the greatness of each of these teachings as a philosophical discourse, then you start to understand Japji Sahib. Like, it's never going to fully make sense to you because it is Brahmgyan, because it is infinite knowledge, it is conversations between enlightened beings and the enlightener.
ਝੂਠ ਛੁਡਾਵੈ ਸੱਚ ਦੇ ਲਾਏ.
And in very simple terms, Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says, Guru Nanak Dev Ji had people abandon falsehood and follow truth. This not being specific to one religion or tradition, because falsehood and truth are found in each religion and tradition.
ਦੋਹਰਾ ਇਮਕਰ ਸੈਲ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਕੀ ਲੀਨੇ ਲੋਕ ਪਤਿਆਏ.
And in this way, Guru Nanak Dev Ji traveled through Punjab, liberating many people.
ਹਿਤ ਸੁੰਦਰ ਧਰਮਸਾਲ ਕਰ ਨਿਜ ਨਿਜ ਧਰਮ ਲਾਏ.
And in this way, Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says, many beautiful dharamsalas, many beautiful centers of dharam where righteousness would be spread, where food would be served, where poor would be clothed. Guru Nanak Dev Ji established many beautiful places like this and many beautiful people who started to follow this tradition.
ਸਭੀ ਹਕੀਕਤ ਉਨੈ ਕੀ ਇਹਾਂ ਲਿਖੀ ਯੋ ਨਾਹੇ.
Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says that I am not narrating the full history to you here of everything that took place at that time.
ਜਨਮ ਸਾਖੀ ਪੁਰਾਤਨੋ ਦੇਖੈ ਜਿਸ ਹੋਏ ਚਾਹੇ.
And Bhai Rattan Singh Ji says that whoever wants to know more about this can refer to the Janam Sakhi. So in the Janam Sakhi is one of the earliest texts that we have on the life of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and it is from these then that Kavi Santokh Singh Ji collects some of these stories and builds on them from other sources to have the Nanak Parkash, which is the most extensive telling of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's life history. And Bhai Rattan Singh Ji, remember though, is telling us of the history of the Panth, and he is building the picture of how did this Panth start. And as we've said many times before, the Panth didn't start at Guru Gobind Singh Ji, Guru Nanak Dev Ji started the Panth. So many of the traditions that we see here, this tradition of traveling around and doing Kirtan, this tradition of doing Jor Melay, this traditions of going to places where sadhu sants come together, each of these things Guru Nanak Dev Ji set in motion and started to essentially hand-pick people around the world that they wanted to give this message of teaching to, and people who were blessed around the world then to take to these teachings, who would spread these teachings. And it is in this way that Sikhi grew. When people would take updates from the Guru, they would go back to wherever they stayed, they would practice that Sikhi, join other people with that path, and in this way Sikhi spread. So the early actions done by Guru Nanak Dev Ji at this time was essentially going all around the world, spreading that seed, spreading that bee. And the tradition of Udasis then is upheld by everyone to a regard, where there are aspects of that in terms of traveling and spreading religion. Almost every Sikh group has elements of that, of going to Jor Melay, and the Nahang Singh traditions, where their tradition is to go on horseback, and the Udasi tradition, some of the traditions there were to walk. And we find that at the sites that Guru Nanak Dev Ji established around the world, it was the Udasi Sikhs who then looked after these, and they did so in a very similar manner to Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So in the way that we say that these people viewed Guru Nanak Dev Ji within their own traditions, the Udasis would be that bridge, where for them they were spreading the message of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Many of them came from yogic traditions, many of them came from disciplines where they brought that background, they brought that learning, and they brought that orientation with them. But they, not all just around India, all around Asia, eventually visited the sites that Guru Nanak Dev Ji did, the Udasis too, that Guru Nanak Dev Ji travelled to, essentially living that detached lifestyle that Guru Nanak Dev Ji lived for that part of their life. So in as much as in Sikhi sometimes we get caught in the debate that should someone be entirely detached or should someone be immersed in the world, and essentially we set standards on everyone, but at the Guru's times, and in different guruships, there were different times, and that happened over centuries. And from that, we have so many diverse traditions in Sikhi. They all reflect the diversity of Guru Sahib's time. So the Katha here finishes. Bhai Rattan Singh Ji will go on to tell us other key episodes from Guru Nanak Dev Ji's life. For example, when Guru Nanak Dev Ji met with Kaljug, when Guru Nanak Dev Ji met with the master of darkness of these times, so to speak. But and the other thing, when Guru Nanak Dev Ji went to Mecca, and when Guru Nanak Dev Ji went to other spiritual centers, and eventually to the point of when Guru Gobind Singh Ji comes and then gives this Panth, the roop that Guru Gobind Singh Ji gives it as the Khalsa. So if we have made any mistakes during the Katha, we ask for the Sangat's forgiveness and blessing. And in reading the last 2 verses, we will say Fateh, and that will be the end of today's Katha.
सभी हकीकतों न की इहा लिखी यो नाहे जन्म साखी पुरातनो देखो जिस होए चाहे
वाहेगुरु जी का खालसा वाहेगुरु जी की फतेह जयकारे जावे निहालो जावे गुरु नानक परमात्मा जी नू पावे निहालो जावे सत श्री अकाल वाहेगुरु जी का खालसा वाहेगुरु जी की फतेह।